Welcome all. This is your Power Rangers, the Putty Hour. We're kind of a podcast slash streaming thing now. I don't know really what to call us, but we're awesome. So
We're
that's all I'm gonna.
multimedia.
That's all,
Multimedia is the proper word.
yes,
So
that's what
multimedia.
I'm gonna call us. We are season 2, episode 4, and of course I am Matt Aguilar, aka Night Voa. My wonderful co-host Nick Valdez at
Howdy.
Valdezology, and today we have a special guest. Joseph Deckelmeier of the Illuminati is
What's
joining
going
us.
on, y'all? How you guys doing?
Oh man, so happy to have you, Joe.
Dude,
So pumped, man.
happy to be here talking Power Rangers, amongst my favorite people. I love talking Power Rangers.
Oh,
Let's talk about it enough nowadays.
okay.
Yes.
I'm not lying. That is like part of why this podcast exists. Because me and Nick we're always in the Slack channel, like talking about stuff like this. I'm like, dude, I need to nerd out a bit, like record this or like public or something. And we're like, oh, why don't we just talk about it on a show? And that's how this thing started.
I mean, it's fun talking to like-minded people about like-minded things, especially Power Rangers. I agree. I mean, that's the only reason I started covering Power Rangers as well. Literally, me and my friend JD Ferranda were sitting there and going over a lot of our fan theories. I believe Morphicon was coming up. I had never been. And, it opened up my eyes to all these other like-minded fans. And then at that point, I was just so immersed into the community and the fandom. I mean, I had obviously been a Power Ranger fan growing up, but I didn't know there were other people out there like me.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. I will say
it's a whole other world. It's a whole other world.
It really is. It's a franchise just like no other franchise. It's just so unique. And I actually got to go. So I don't know when your first Morphicon was. Mine was okay. I have a hard time placing years, but it was Beast Morphers Cast. That's how I identify like
Morphicon. Like 10
years
ago at this
point.
It
was when the Beast Morphers Cast was introduced. So it was the passing of.
I remember that. Mine was when the Ninja Steel cast.
Okay. So it was still like I'd heard about Morphicon obviously and always wanted to go, but that was the first one where I went, and you really just it is super cool just to be around a bunch of people that just like, nerd out about the same stuff as you and just adore this franchise and everything. Nick, have you had the chance to go to Morphicon yet?
Nope. RIP, miss you every day.
Oh, we need to get you out there.
There's one this year, Nick.
Maybe next year. RIP.
I'm gonna. It's my mission, Nick. But before the 10-year mark at comic book, I got to get you to Morphicon.
Yeah,
we got to go together.
We'll do that. Yeah, we'll just go be giant Power Ranger nerds.
Yes.
It is so much fun, Matt. You can attest. Like, it's just cool just hanging out in the lobby and talking to other fans that have like-minded. And the crazy thing is, and I'm sure you guys get this too. Like, when you say, "Oh, I'm a Power Ranger fan," and you ask somebody, "Oh, what's your favorite season?" and immediately they go Mighty Morphin, and you go, "Oh, okay, I see where your level of fandom is." You know what I mean? Like, you kind of get those layers.
Yeah.
Ooh, wait, that's interesting, Joe. What's your favorite season?
Good question.
My favorite season, oh man, great question. I go back and forth between Zeo and SPD.
Okay.
You got a brother over here in SPD.
Yeah.
I think SPD for what it did, I think it was really one of the first seasons that really started world building. I don't know, that's maybe not true because Zeo was really world building too, like way back when. But SPD, I felt like had layers to their storytelling that was beyond Power Rangers up to that point.
I would agree. It's why it's also one of my favorite. It's also got a great theme song. One of the best.
Oh, I think it has the best theme song.
I think so too. It's the drums. Like it's that drum loop, that whatever that. I'm just like, yep, okay, I'm in it.
And Doggy Kruger, man, it's hard for me to beat Doggy Kruger just as a mentor / ranger.
That's true. I don't know. It's always weird. Like I always thought about the physics of him cramming in like his face into the helmet, and I get like, magic powers and science and it all. You're not supposed to think about it, but I've always thought about that stuff. Like
Xenowing, same thing with the silver Dino Charge Ranger. I always think the same thing with this giant like bird.
Yeah.
And it just folds up, man. It just everything folds up nice and neat, and it's just like I always look at it kind of like. Okay, so to meld universes here, I look at it like Darkhawk. Okay, this is how I envision the helmets, because like Darkhawk now kind of trades places with his suit of armor. Like it's not actually like him wearing the armor. He's kind of like swaps places, and the armor is its own thing, independent of his body, but his mind and body are controlling it. That is how I look at like
That's
the
so
helmet.
weird.
The helmet. So like anything like the helmet just like phases, and like whatever was underneath is like in another space. So it doesn't matter that it doesn't like that like Dr. Kruger's head can't feasibly fit into that helmet. It doesn't matter because it's in another space.
I mean, the alternative is body horror, right? So, you know,
True.
you watch Justin in Turbo morph and he gets stretched out to like an adult size, and you're like, oh, is that just a thing he feels? Is that just, you know, does that happen with all the rest of them that, you know, get squeezed into these suits? So, yeah, maybe we'll just go with your thing back.
I think my rationale like sidesteps that whole thing.
You know, I wonder how they're going to do the Justin Lightning Collection action figure, mainly because the head swap wouldn't necessarily work for the.
Unless they include a
mini
second figure.
Comic-Con 2-pack, you know what I'm saying? I'm on board with it.
Would that be like the first, you know how they're doing that like deluxe series and stuff? Like that's a perfect one for a deluxe, right? To do two, like a little figure, and then do like a bunch of accessories, and then do the straight up figure.
Same thing. I honestly, I want a Bulk and Skull Comic-Con 2-pack. I think we have to get it, right?
I would love a Bulk and Skull. Yeah.
I'm really
which Bulk and Skull? That's the question though.
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind the movie version of Bulk and Skull, you know, where they're the skydiving suits where they have like the helmets with like the mohawks and stuff like that. So I think that's the one I remember the most. If not, then maybe the Bulk with like the tie-dye purple shirt, because classics. So,
yeah, the tie-dye purple shirt is okay. So Joe, which one? Which Bulk?
I'm gonna go cop Bulk and Skull.
Okay.
Turbo. Remember that, and we could get maybe the chimps, like as a little. You know what I mean? As a little part of the little play set.
That's right. That did happen to them. It's what a wild ride for them in general too. You know.
Okay, so mine. I'm going coinless universe Bulk and Skull.
I like that.
So I can get badass Bulk, like just oh my god, I want the character, and then I get like. The Sentry outfit, but Skull's head, like swappable head or whatever. You know, if you want to reuse the Sentry, there you go. I'm saving you money because like they're just gonna reuse the mold and just give him a swappable head.
Well, Matt,
done.
Would you want the likeness to be from the Boom Studios comic version or from the show?
I am. Everyone knows I'm partial to the comics. I love this, like the most of the their interpretations of the likenesses, because like there obviously is a similarity between like Narvi and the comic Skull, but it is super stylized. I like the super stylized look, so I'd be down for that. But I know even in the comic ones, they've been, and we'll get to this topic as well later on, but I know they've been kind of leaning still towards like it's still a show face, right? Like it's still a likeness to the show or the movie or whatever. So it would probably be Skull from the show, which by the way is totally cool. I'm not going to be the guy that's like, how dare you? Like if you give me a comic Skull and you have a real life head, I'm cool. Like I'm not going to balk at that because I got my Sentry Skull. But I just think that's, you know, I think that's also one of those that they can do as a, because they did Zed and Rita, right? It's a 2-pack, and they did it as a GameStop exclusive. Was it GameStop exclusive?
The wedding special, right? The wedding anniversary special.
So like that's a perfect, do it as an exclusive. That way, you know, you justify it on the cost side. If they're paying some of that, right? Like you do that, and then I would imagine though we'll get a traditional, probably like you or Nick's, like tie-dye shirt. We'll probably get a traditional Bulk and Skull before we get any of my craziness. But yeah, but I love it. Also, as far as like favorite shows and theme songs, as much as I love In Space, because In Space is my favorite Power Ranger season, always will be. But I gotta give Zio credit on the song.
Oh, I love Zeo so
Zeo's got such a good theme, man.
Yeah.
It's just
I don't love that season.
Into it, man. That guitar riff, oh man, I agree with you. I love Zeo as well.
It's like Journey made a Power Rangers theme.
Exactly.
I mean, that's what that song is, and I love Journey. So yeah,
it works on a lot of levels because Zeo's like the first real reboot, and it says up straight up in the lyrics, like, no, these are different Rangers. They're stronger than before, all this other stuff. So it's like, oh, okay, it works on that level. It works as a Saturday morning cartoon theme, and it's good. So yeah,
it just works.
And that's a great choice, Matt. In Space is such a good choice because it really opens up the universe. I feel like that, that was the first time in Power Rangers it really felt like year by year by year we were following along the journey of different cast members, and it really felt like a culmination season. And it was, I mean, as a kid, I was fully on board. It was a mixture of Star Trek, Star Wars, and Power Rangers all mixed into one, and I was all about it.
Yeah, no, man. And that's why we've had discussions on this show about fighting for that. Like, if Power Rangers going to adapt one more, like, let's do that space season. Because I don't know, space seasons can be awesome. They can also suck, but they can be awesome. I have a fondness for that, but more so, I do love In Space just for how important it is to like those first years of like that ongoing story.
Right.
That is such a pivotal, like that ends it. Like it's such a pivotal, like, you know what I mean? In a lot of ways, like it's such a pivotal chapter.
But Matt, In Space taught us, and Lost Galaxy taught us, that you can do any show in space. You can do any version of the Power Rangers and say it's in space.
You can.
You don't have to take that. I keep dunking on it. I'm gonna dunk on it every episode of season 2. That Q Ranger. I don't like them, and you don't need those suits.
This is where I'm gonna have to disagree with you on this one, Nick. I think those suits are some of the best looking Super Sentai suits that I've seen. But I would agree they don't quite look exactly like the Power Ranger suits, but that's exactly why I like them.
Thank you.
That's another, but no, that's always been my argument, Matt. Don't let it get twisted for the new guests, Matt. My argument for that has always been they don't look like Power Rangers.
Which I completely understand with that, but at the same time, I think that there's so much you can do with that season. There's so many different places you can go. I mean, there's two ways to look at that season, really. If you wanted to adapt it, you can either go, the space season that everybody kind of wants that ties it into the other universes. I mean, you have the characters already set up for you. Big Yellow Ranger could be from Aquitar. You have like the Gold Ranger, who's like an android. You can have him as a rebel from the Machine Empire. There's so many different little things you can do with that season that would be cool. But then on the other hand, you can literally call it like Power Rangers All-Stars and get a different Ranger back from every season to compile that team. I mean,
that's an idea. That's an idea.
So this is funny. So this is like such a perfect segue into a topic. We're just gonna shift everything right. So
I know it kind of happens, right?
Right, because it just works out. Okay, so one of the things we're gonna talk about today are the next couple episodes of Dino Fury season 2. But the first 11 are on Netflix right now, of course. If you haven't watched them, you should go watch them. They're dope. But one of the things, and by the way, so I didn't actually know before I put this topic in here that there was like scuttlebutt, like that had been a thing of like people talking about like possible Dino Fury season 3. I didn't actually know that was an online thing. I hadn't jumped into that Reddit thread yet. So like when I put that in here, it was strictly because this series is doing so many things that kind of harken back to the classic days of like the things that people really loved about Power Rangers when it was in its heyday, and as far as like story and characters and kind of doing ongoing stories and things like that. The thinking, of course, is even more now that no one knows what's going to happen after this, because there's been all these things of like Hasbro, deciding not to go with Sentai anymore as its basis and do some original things, which I have said before I am a fan of. I like that idea, but also for bucking tradition, and we're changing things and we're open to that. Most people will say animated series, yes, that too, but I would say why can't I know it's been a tradition that we only get 2 seasons aside from Mighty Morphin, because that's the weird that's the only exception to the rule. But like, why can't we just do a 3rd season? Like, what is so beholden to the 2-season format? I know that's how it's been done, but since we're doing so many things differently, would you want to see them do a Dino Fury season 3? Whether or not, and I want to take out the considerations of footage shortage or like logistical things. Let's take that out of the equation, because obviously you can explain away or explain pretty much anything using those facts. Like we know so little, and we've seen that when Power Rangers wants to focus on the character more, Tommy, that they can just scrap the barrel for footage and figure out a way to do
right,
it.
right.
So I think they could overcome that if that was like a legit obstacle of like, hey, we don't have a ton of footage. Well, okay, you shoot more original stuff and you figure it out, right? So would that be something you would want to see them do?
Personally speaking, I think there's a lot of rumor and speculation what's going on for the 30th anniversary, and like we can dive into that all day long, because there's tons of things that I'm hearing about it now. But to answer this question, I absolutely would love a Dino Fury season 3. I think this is one of the strongest casts we've had in a long time, and I actually think the writing on this season has been phenomenal. And I think that being on Netflix really helps take the restraints off a little bit and let them do serialized storytelling.
Right.
I think that they're really changing the mold. And it's crazy because us as Power Ranger fans, I think that we're so used to the traditional 22 episode seasons, half or 20 minutes long or whatever, the same kind of thing. So when you see changes from season 1 to season 2 of Dino Fury, or even our Beast Morphers to Dino Fury, you're seeing these small steps that are taken. But if you've only seen Power Rangers starting at, we'll say, I don't know, when did we'll say like Dino Charge till now, it feels like it's progressing faster than you would think.
Yeah.
But if you're in it, then it seems like we're taking these small steps. Like I said, though, I think the storytelling is a lot stronger. I also think that why do we just need one Power Ranger property right now to kind of focus on? Like, if we do have Dino Fury season 3, it doesn't mean we can't get another season or a 30th anniversary special. We can start doing multiple things out there. I think one of the charms of the original Power Rangers, especially that Saban era, is the simple fact that we kind of got to grow up with these group of Rangers and see them off on their journeys. It almost felt like an American version or a Team American version of Doctor Who, where you kind of have like this one doctor that you kind of follow along until that doctor's ready to step down, and then you get another one to replace it. I feel like that's how the cast changes were kind of handled when we got the team ups every year originally. But I think that's kind of like, we're getting a little bit of a mixture of that now. I think now more so since the Boom Studios comic has really been opening up the lore and mythology of Power Rangers. I think we're seeing that deeply infused in these new seasons of Power Rangers. And I think we're going to see that going forward, hopefully.
Yeah, I would agree. I've said before on the show that I really enjoy this cast, and whether or not it's technically a Dino Fury season 3, I would like to see them again in another capacity. So I would go as far to say as like just toss out all the old powers. Like, why not? Just like if they're going full reboot, I guess, for like want to keep the same cast, just do what the old ones did and like destroy the Zords, destroy the base, and then be like, oh, we have found this new power. Here are some cars, So it's like you can, and you can see this especially well with season 2, going along with the whole Netflix thing and the whole like the fact that there is a serialized narrative for the first real time on this new little era here, that like season 2, this cast is like getting so well at, like, they're doing so well at their jobs. It's really weird to say, it's like they're growing so much more compared to the first season that it's like, it's the baby with the bathwater thing. Why would you toss out everything when like the cast and character work is already there? Just shake it up with more situations. So just keep that going and graduate whoever doesn't want to stick around. Fill in new kids. Yeah,
exactly.
Or spin them off for like because I agree with Joe. I think there's not a I don't think there's any real reason to limit why Dino Fury doesn't have to be the only thing happening in Power Rangers. You can have your, geez, I mean, we've heard so many rumors about, whether it's MMPR reunions or original shows or, like you can, whatever you want that to be, whether you want that to be an animated series, whether you want that to be a new team, an original special, whatever. There can always be multiple teams. There's actually enough room for it.
Right.
But I understand also why, to this point, they've only focused on the one team because, that it made sense for their merchandising model and it made sense for everything else. We're in a different space. Their partnership with Netflix has shown its willingness to expand a property.
Yeah, they want universes.
So I mean, geez, look at Witcher. Yeah. Like Witcher has exploded, and it exploded after one season. And they have an anime offshoot series now because there's a second one coming. They have an animated series coming, which I'm still very intrigued to see what the heck that is. And then of course they have the main series and then the spinoff Blood Origin. So like just that alone in just a couple years, like that happened overnight. They had the same hopes for Miller World. That hasn't hopefully Super Crooks rebounds that, and maybe we can get back in there because that was promising. But
it didn't.
Yeah, it did. But like I'm open to the idea. I want a season 3. Whether you call that a season 3, like Nick said, as like a 22 episode thing, whether it's just a series of specials, one special. When you have a team, when you have a cast that gels so well together, and you want to, once they get to that point, this is how it always feels. So like I liken Power Rangers to the Final Fantasy franchise as far as like, I like the model of, hey, let's change it up.
Right.
Let's bring in a new story, new world, new this and whatever. I like the idea of that. But the difference between that is like, with a Final Fantasy game, you get how many hours of content and story, and you really get to see these characters and storylines go from point A to point B and really conclude these things. And then sometimes even that gets a sequel, right? So you're getting a lot more time investment in that. You get to play in that toy box a lot longer. And with Power Rangers, 2 seasons always feels like by the time the group really gels and is like at their best and on all cylinders, it ends. Yeah. And I want Dino Fury is already at that point, just at the beginning of season 2. So I'm very excited to see how the rest of it plays out. But also I'm like, man, just let them play in the toy box longer. Like, let's get that 3rd year and let's just really see them fly and just have fun. And then we can send off those characters if we want. Like Nick said, we can bring other ones back. If they're up for it, if they want to jump back into anniversary episodes or even just guest star on a future season, cool. But I just, man, to me, it's a not a disservice. Disservice is the wrong word. I almost feel like I'm getting robbed a little bit if like we don't get to see them again in some form or fashion.
Yeah,
because they're just so damn good.
Yeah.
Especially I feel
Netflix. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
I also feel that with Power Rangers is so synonymous with dinosaurs that this would be such a great brand to kind of continue on with. The other thing is too that I think would be really cool if they did expand on anything beyond season 2 would be to use those former Super Sentai villains that we know that we're not going to get in an American version and use those for this. And I think that like just having a current Dino themed season. Look, and by the way, I love these Dino Fury suits. I think they are beautiful.
They're great.
Yeah, they were
great. Beautiful. So I would love to keep the tradition going. Like Nick was saying, I missed the era of Power Rangers when there was this element. I mean, obviously with Jason, Zach, and Trini originally, it was a little messy, but I like the era of passing of the torch, this kind of like passing down the power, that Power Ranger tradition. And I'd love to see that brought back.
Yeah. In the moment, that was great. Years later, growing up, finding out it was ugly, like there's so ugliness behind it. You're like, oh no. But watching it as a kid, I was like, oh my God, power transfer. There's a sword, and it's like, yeah. I was like, who are these new people? And it was wild. And then it happened again in Turbo.
Yeah,
and it was like, oh, so good.
I agree, though. I think the idea, I think the idea subtracting the drama, the backstage drama, I think the idea is cool. I like that idea, and that way you let people exit as they so choose. And like we saw with Jason, right? There's always ways to bring them back in the fold if they want to become a Ranger again later. Like you can always figure that stuff out. As long as you don't write yourself into a box, and even then you can figure out something. I mean,
even then it's Power Rangers. They can do whatever they want.
I mean, look, they killed Buffy off and then they managed to bring her back a year later. Like, okay.
No, I have a Power Ranger question. I'm glad I'm on this show because I have a Power Ranger question that nobody's been able to answer for me. So I'm going to throw it out there to you guys to see see how your headcanon works on this one. So back in Mighty Morphin Season 3, Lord Zed reversed the clock back, right? He reversed time, and then all the Rangers were young again, right?
Yes.
But instead of the original 5, Jason, Zach, Trini, Billy, and Kimberly, instead at this point now it's the six of the Rangers, but it's with Tommy, Billy, Rocky, and Adam, and whoever else, and Aisha, but they were all together. So did they like retcon that? Like they had never met Jason, Zach, and Trini when they went back in time? Ooh. I know it's a really weird question, but it's always bothered me every time I get to that point. And then we get the Alien Rangers there for a little bit with the kids.
I always thought it was a connection to the power grid kind of thing. The Morphin grid and the power coins. Like it all just kept it in. Like it kept their heads in the present, even though like there was some evidence to the contrary, but like that was the only way for it to make sense to me. Because once you start thinking about it, you start thinking about the Tanya of it all. And you're like, wait a minute, did this poor girl lose so many years of her life in like just a moment? Like,
yeah, but I think she did.
Oh, she straight up did. She was robbed of her.
Because
she got robbed of her childhood.
I'm gonna admit, I didn't give it that much thought at the time, right? Obviously, I didn't give it that much thought. Oh my God, she did though. Because they don't like go back and like they don't explain that away.
No, all she does was find her parents eventually later, but they don't really explain, from her leaving with Aisha and getting the crystal to her like with the Rangers.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I don't think there's any. I don't know unless there's like a tidbit I'm missing from
and that's the other
another
thing too.
Season or like some,
That's the other thing too, is Aisha out there, like, was she still a child out there? Was she not impacted by like all the reversals and stuff like that?
Boy.
Because she's
somewhere
at the time of all this.
This is where the multiverse of Power Rangers really starts.
Yeah.
Somewhere Ryan Parrott and Matt Groom are just like writing like, oh my God, yeah, we gotta play with that. We gotta play with that premise. That's that's golden. That's a whole series unto itself.
Time travel is a big thing. You could, as we saw with Time Force and Hyperforce, like, and several of the comics, like we could end up having like a time travel season or like a time travel movie or like whatever, and you could throw in some of these things in there.
Okay, so because we have, because Joey's here, I am actually curious because it's been a minute since we've actually had like any updates on like that whole movie stuff that like started coming out about it being 90s theme, but like it was going to be like modern day and then moved into the past and like that time travel stuff. Do you like that approach? Like, do you like essentially like the MMPR-fication?
I do. I mean, I'm not opposed to it whatsoever. The only thing is, this is from what I've heard. I can't confirm like this officially, but like I've just heard that there's been a lot of changes that have been going on with what they want to do going forward with the franchise. In terms of the film, because it felt like at least a year ago, it felt like whatever they're going to do with the film felt very disconnected from whatever was going to happen with the show. But now, who knows? I feel like everything is really up in the air. But I'm not opposed to that idea at all. Look, cinematically, I would love something that would be a big budget thing that would pay homage and respect to the 30 years that came before it, mainly because you have such a deep lineage there. And how many other franchises do you have from 30 years ago where most of all the actors are willing to come back and reprise their roles?
That's very true.
So like it just doesn't happen. So I would hate for them to cut off and just start something completely fresh. I mean, it's not saying they would ever not go back because I feel like there's too much equity in that last 30 years that they have built up. So I don't see that happening. But I think that Hasbro still views Power Rangers as like an emerging brand, though. They have established brands, obviously, G.I. Joe and Transformers, that do really well for them. But I feel like Power Rangers, is on the cusp of just hitting that mainstream, but not enough to really move the needle anywhere. One thing that I absolutely would do in Power Rangers, though, is I feel like with Hasbro, there's so much secrecy that happens with the Power Ranger franchise in general. Now that may be because they're not exactly sure what's going to happen,
right?
Or it could be fan reaction, or they could just be playing it closely to the chest. But if it is the latter, I think that's the wrong approach for one specific reason. I think that Power Ranger fans in general will show up if you let them know that some of these actors are going to be coming back at some point during the season. Because I think that when you keep that a secret, that's great. But guess what? You keep it a secret from everybody. Nobody knows. Nobody tunes in. Nobody watches it. And there's no buzz about it. And I feel that if they were just to be like, hey, X person's coming back, let's kind of celebrate. I mean, they did that with Austin, I believe, with his lead up to Dimensions in Day, or was it Dimension? No, it was whatever.
I know what you're doing. Yeah,
Connection. When he came back for Grid Connection, I felt like that was one of the things. But they also, I mean, as you noticed, they kind of downplayed all the other people because other people didn't come back. But I feel like, you know, with the 30th anniversary, you got so many actors willing to come back, you may as well take advantage of it. But in terms of the movie, which you originally asked, I really like the idea of really paying homage to that 30 years that came before it. I really like the infusion of doing that time stuff like that, and hopefully correcting some of that stuff that we look at as mistakes.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that either. You know, that way you can have your brand new team. You can have your brand new, you know, Jason and Tommy, and you know they're obviously gonna like. If I were a betting man, it would be like a straight MMPR reboot kind of thing. But if you infuse that time travel, you can be like, well, they're just an alternate universe version of like, you know, this core team. And I wouldn't mind that because you're right. Like, it's so weird to not utilize all of the pieces that you have, you know, and especially like the ones that are so adamant about returning or so like, hey, why don't you include us? You know, Matt brought this up on the last episode about like the Amy Jo Johnson stuff, where like a whole thing kind of branched off of just her statement of like, you know, oh, maybe the original people should be involved, kind of thing. I forget what I'm speaking in vague terms here. Apologies to that, but you totally like, why not? It's a why not kind of thing. Like, yeah, a why not could be, oh, well, we want to keep this completely fresh, but it's like, what harm is there in giving us that little extra?
I think, and it's hard because, I mean, because at this point, I just want them to have a cohesive vision that doesn't isolate, like that isn't. I'm not a big fan of siloed, siloed opinions or siloed vision. I don't like a bunch of people in their own places doing, you know, whatever, right? Because there's no like communication between all those. So I want the movie to succeed. And when they did it last time, they kind of went with like, you know, what Joe was talking about, this like the homage. They very much paid respect to like traditions of MMPR, but modernized it and did their own thing and brought an amazing cast together. And while I have like, obviously that film is not perfect, the 2017 film, but I love it. It's not perfect, but I thought they took a pretty damn good swing and it didn't connect, right? So you go, okay, well, what was missing? Like, what was the thing missing? And if like I look at like what Ghostbusters Afterlife did with how it acknowledged its original cast and its original characters, more importantly, not even just the cast, but the characters, and sat in that world for a bit. And like, yes, I know some people were very much against the, you know, kind of banged on it for being too nostalgic, for being too in your face about like what this is. But like, that's what people loved.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't get that, because it's kind of like, okay, well, you've been complaining for years, and this gets into a whole like fandom thing. But like, you've been complaining for years that it wasn't close enough. Like, there wasn't Ghostbusters, not my Ghostbusters, not this. And then literally a film comes along that says, oh, this is, and like lovingly like embraces everything about that and tells a very like personal story in the midst of it, pays respect to these characters, does some really interesting things with it, and brings a new group in to give the franchise new blood, and it's like, oh, it's too far. I just don't. There are times when I go, fandom doesn't know what the hell they want, and so for me, I just want it to work. I want it to work, and I want it to connect with fans, and I think Afterlife and films like it, because there have been several films that have embraced nostalgia that way and used it to then push things forward and introduce new blood into it. And I think this can do it. I do think having the original, you don't have to have everyone. I get it. Like, relationships happen and things like that. You can't, get behind closed doors or whatever. But at the same time, if a group of people are willing and the franchise's fandom is very like open arms, wants them in the mix in some form or fashion, a cameo at the end is not going to do it.
Have you guys seen the tweet that Jonathan Entwistle recently wrote about Power Rangers to No Pink Spandex?
No, I didn't see that one.
So I just wanted to, since we're talking about the future of Power Rangers, I may as well bring it up, right? Hold on, let me pull it up for you guys because I don't want to misquote anything here. 1 second.
I mean, Nick misquoted me, but that's
I do it all the time though. So Matt's already aware of this.
No Pink Spandex asks, "What season do you want to see get their own movie?" And Jonathan Entwistle responded, "How about a brand new
one?" Ooh, okay.
Yeah, that's about.
That sounds about right.
That's about right.
Now, a major question to add on to this though: does release platform change anything? So if this deal with Netflix means that the whole interconnected universe means the movie hits Netflix too.
My guess is that the film is going to end up on Netflix.
Yeah. So does that change things? Does it mean like, oh, they can't, for whatever reason, they have to keep it confined to like a completely new group and new story and new ideas? Or are they like, I guess the quote unquote budget question is like, do they get the big theatrical budget of being allowed to be like, hey, do you want to come back and show up and say a line? Do you want to, all et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
Man, I don't know with their ties to Paramount. I just don't see a space where that is Netflix exclusively. Now, if it's also on, or like they work out a deal where like it's like a certain expedited time frame or something, I can see that. But I don't know. I mean, this whole theatrical model is still, despite a bunch of inroads in chipping away at it, especially because of the pandemic and like necessitating changes. I think they're pretty foot in the ground, flag in the ground, like it's going to be theatrical. But as someone who has discovered a love of like watching movies from home, I'd be perfectly fine with that. I will say that even if it is a Netflix film, I mean, all you got to do is look at Red Notice and go like, Netflix is willing to spend ridiculous amounts of money on movies that, like, I mean, look at the Ryan Reynolds, Chris Hemsworth. They've all had movies that kind of fill that, they're big for a weekend.
But that's also, they're also blockbuster actors though. Power Rangers probably won't have that. Let's just say that.
Yes, that is correct. But I'm saying more upon the like it makes total sense why they would put all the money in Red Notice. You have 3 huge bankable stars.
That's all the money right there.
It's a temple, right? But like some of these other movies, even though yes, they are led by a big name, they're still pretty disposable films that aren't going to be in the zeitgeist for the year. These aren't awards like nominees. You know what I mean? They're fun, entertaining movies, and Netflix has shown that like even on those, we're willing to fork over some money, even though we don't expect it to be like, to rewrite cinema. And then like even one of those, I can't remember which one to be honest, but one of the Ryan Reynolds or Hemsworth ones getting a sequel.
So it is. Yeah, it's the Hemsworth film.
It's the Hemsworth one.
Yeah, Extraction.
Called like Extraction, Rebellion.
I love Extraction. Don't bash Extraction. I love it.
But like, so what I'm saying is that they're shown a willingness, especially if it's a universe builder. Power Rangers is that.
That's
they
true.
see
It's a very good point.
potential in being able to do all these spinoffs and have a wheel of original content that they can call their own. So they might be willing to fork over some money. I'm not saying it's Red Notice money, but also with Power Rangers, like if you do it right, you don't need 300 million.
That's a great point too. I mean, Dino Fury looks great. Dino Fury just looks great as it is.
I mean, look, the costumes, give them a little bit of an upgrade. The special effects, give it an upgrade, obviously, right? Like I actually want some like 2017 Zord looking fights if I'm going to have that, right? Like put the money there if you're going to put the money there and put it in the suits. But like the Rangers aren't always in the suits and they spend half the time unmorphed. Don't keep them unmorphed for as long as the 2017 did. But like you can work around not having 200 mil for your movie.
Would your strategy be more so attacking like the different demographics? If there was like a Dino Fury season 3, you're attacking like 7 to whatever it is, and then for a feature like a feature film that Jonathan Entwistle's doing, you're attacking a little bit of an older demographic, so probably like the CWDC fan base.
For Dino Fury, what I would like to see them do is if they get that third season or that special, appropriately grow with your audience. So for a lot of, there's a whole generation of, and I've even talked to this about with the Rangers at some point of like, there's a whole generation that like you're their Rangers. Like they know you. They don't know Jason. They don't know Tommy. They might have seen them on merchandise or a helmet in their dad or mom's room, but they don't know who they are. They know Amelia. They know Zato. So take advantage of the fact that they're growing up as your show is growing up. That's what I did. I grew up with Mighty Morphin at that exact time, and I grew up with them, and as they got older, right? And sometimes just like start to slowly mature the stories, things that they would go through in life. Let's go ahead and deal with some of those things. I'm not asking you to become, ER over the course of a season and like deal with like heavy concepts, but I'm also like, go ahead and grow with them. And just let that be okay, and step outside of it has to be in this demographic, and then bring a new team in that is catered to your child, that age range, which I always forget that kind of age range fluctuates as far as like their key demo, but like what, the 4 to like 8?
Yeah, like 3 to 10 or something.
Yeah, it's kind of that.
It always breaks my heart because I'm like, I'm an adult.
I mean, look, there's a lot of kids that love Spider-Man, and I like Spider-Man.
The one thing I absolutely, and I think it's more so now, I'm really reflecting on this as like a dad, is that I, watched Power Rangers as a kid and kind of grew up with it. And I tried introducing, at the time, she was 4, my little one to Power Rangers, started her off with Mighty Morphin. She got into the first couple of seasons. When we got to Zeo, she was out of it. And then for work stuff, I had to do Dino Fury. And I let her watch it with me, and she loved it to the point where she won't let me watch episodes without her because she absolutely loves these characters. So you're completely right, Matt. This is the Power Ranger she absolutely identifies with now. And this is, if we're talking about growth for the future, that's your target demo. She's literally asking me to buy her every Power Ranger toy now. So I'm just recycling my money on things that I want to. So it works out both ways. You know what I mean? I can justify the spending at this point. But now, this is the new era fan of Power Rangers that are going to be carrying this torch for the foreseeable future. But I agree with you. There's a generation out there that understands that Amelia and Zato and all these other characters, Izzy, that's their Power Rangers now. And going forward, I mean, it's a good team to have, is to being there.
Yeah.
Just so don't dump it. Like, don't just cut it off. There are things you can do with that property and with those characters and with with that cast. And the cast seems anyway very willing and very like they had a good experience, it seems like. So take advantage of that. Like, welcome them back in, keep them in the mix, because that's how we get characters that like people are clamoring for a figure for later on. Why did everyone loves this character, right? You only get that if they're in front of you for a significant period of time. That's why people care.
That's how you get fans like us who will just keep watching it forever. Just because it's like, oh, they're going to be here for another season. Okay, let's. Oh, they're going to space. Let's see what's going on with that.
Yeah, and when Dino Fury shows up in the comics, a year from now, 2 years from now, whenever that, I feel like inevitably happens, because I feel like every team, Beast Morphers has already shown up in the comics, at least for cameo appearance, right? But like, that'll be a big deal to those fans, and over time, that's how you build another MMPR. That's how you build another group. But you have to give it room to breathe, and you have to be willing to kind of step out a little bit in faith. And I know it's not my money. I'm playing with other people's money. I understand that. But you kind of have to just roll with something good that you have and maybe not adhere to tradition. Hasbro seems to be okay with that. So why not do that here? Bring in another season. And I'm cool with Entwistle's all new team. Cool. And you can still have an all new team and pay homage to MMPR and have some of the same characters show up or whatever. Like, you can still do that. That's fine. But I do think you are not even missing the boat, because that sounds all entitled-y. I feel like you're missing a gravy train if you look at this group of people that loves these classic characters, and if the cast is willing to jump in, to me, just going, no, we're going to do something different, is ignoring what could end up being a gold mine for you, and also could, in wrestling terms, give the rub to your new group and let them move off, and people feel satisfied. People don't feel like they're getting someone pushed in their face. They're getting someone that says, hey, we like them too. We'll accept them. And that, for a property, that's what you got to have. That's what the MCU does.
Yeah, like, even if you don't know every single character in all these movies, when one shows up, there, someone next to you might be like freaking out, and you're like, yeah, that's fine.
America Chavez in Multiverse of Madness is going to be the exact way, right? Like, she's going to be, to me anyway, she's going to be the next one that like pops in, and I love that character, but that character doesn't have the mainstream appeal as even now a Doctor Strange has, which is still crazy to me to say. But like, you're going to have that. You're going to have a bunch of people curious about who that is. But they were next to the established person. They get to banter back and forth. You see why they're cool a little bit. You get a little bit of a taste of it, and you move on. And people are still going to like Doctor Strange after that movie, but they're also going to like America Chavez. You can do the same thing. People aren't going to stop liking Amelia because she interacts with Kimberly.
Right.
They're going to like both, and they're going to end up probably coming away. The ones who just like Kimberly and won't hear anything else will then go, oh, I like Amelia too.
Yeah.
That's like, to me, that's not rocket science.
That's how you make Dino Fury the new MMPR. You can finally move past.
That's the end of my TED Talk.
Let me ask you a question. Do you guys think that that Power Rangers is still Power Rangers without its Super Sentai counterpart, or Super Sentai kind of like partnership?
Yes, I think so. Because if if Hyperforce taught us anything, and the comics taught us anything, you can have completely original stories, within, that don't adhere to the Toei stuff, and technically it already is without all the Super Sentai stuff. I mean, like, we've got like some Tokyuger monsters in, what was it, in Ninja Steel we had one, and in this season we have another one. It's like it's already far and away from the super, like, I didn't even know it was Super Sentai until, like, I think it was like an episode of I Love the 90s on VH1 where they were like talking to the cast, and then they were like, oh yeah, they slapped together some Japanese footage. I was like, what? So to me, yeah, I think it's totally separate from all that stuff. Like, they can keep going with brand new, if it's a brand new team, you can do brand new suits, you can do whatever you want, and I think it'll be fine.
And then one thing too that Dino Fury is doing such a good job at is relying less and less on the Super Sentai counterpart and shooting more and more original footage, which probably instills a bit of confidence that they're like, you know what, I think we can like do this.
Yeah. And okay, to also be fair, one, the newer Sentai is also very much not like Power Rangers. So
Yeah.
if they go to adapt some of those, you're gonna have a bunch of people scratching their heads. Like
Right.
it's getting further and further. Like I look at like some of the new, like I look especially at the newest season, and I go like,
On Brothers?
Is that
Yeah,
Persona?
it's Dawn Brothers.
Like is that
Yeah.
Persona? Like what the hell is that? Like, but like I don't equate it to Power Rangers. I still very much equate those as like separate things, and then one's just like adapt certain pieces and whatever. But like if you look at the stuff that is used, like the villains are like the weakest part, and they're like some of the most extensively used footage from Sentai, and I'm like, that's not the best. Like I would be okay if like we got rid of most of that and like had someone come in, you know, like. And Dino Fury has done an amazing job of doing as much with that as they can. Like the villains really do play a lesser part aside from like the core little cast, and they kind of make sure to do that because you get some of those villains in here and like I can't take that seriously.
Well, man, I have a question because I remember you. I'm going back for a second. I don't know. You just said villains and it clicked in my head. I know Power Rangers in Space is your favorite season. Is that the first season that we've had a villain that had like a redemption story arc too? And then like with Astronomer Annie clipped through?
Yeah, because
yes,
that's the first real in-depth villain we get.
Yeah, that was the first full like
where it was built in
midway, like midway through, you're actually rooting for not for the villain to succeed, but like for another chance, like another opportunity. And like, well, maybe it's not, you know, maybe that chapter is not closed. Like you actually are kind of doing that, and then especially towards the end.
It was the first direct connection to one of the Power Rangers too. Like before that, it was just like rando bad guys, you know, and Divatox, you know. So now it's just like this one had a direct connection, and it was built into the story that there's going to be a redemption arc here that we saw play out. It wasn't immediate either. So yeah, that was the first one, and that's probably why it's so effective for many fans years later. It's because we saw it gradually happen over the course of what, like it was like 50 episodes in Space was, and then see, there you go. That's more than Dino Fury is gonna get. Dino Fury is gonna get the 40, if anything, and then
which to today's standards is still really. That's still a lot of.
It's still a lot, but also
even at 20 minutes, that's still a lot of. I mean, geez, most series now get 13.
10 to 13 episodes, right?
Yeah,
it's a lot, but if you look at Ninja Steel, you're like, well, it wasn't enough, I guess. So, I mean, it just, I guess it's in how it's all structured, right?
Yeah.
Like, I guess it's all, you know, how they actually decide to do it.
No, agreed. And I feel like we that was the way more interesting topic of out of all the things I skipped.
Well, yeah.
Okay. So like, but also I love what because like if In Space taught us anything, it's that even as much time as it gave that story, there's still so many spots to fill in. So that's why what was it, Power Rangers, oh man, Unlimited, is it Edge of Darkness? No, that's the Phantom Ranger. Which it's the one that's Astronomer, and I'm blanking on the name right now, but the one that focuses on it's
are you talking Psychopath? Or are you talking
it was the other one. So and I'm blanking on
the name of it too. I know exactly.
Heir to the it's right there. It's right there. But okay, so that one
is it Heir to Darkness?
I think it's like Heir to Darkness, Heir of Darkness, probably somewhere in there. But yes, it is the one that focuses on Astronomer, but also
someone's screaming at us right now.
Nick brought up Divatox, and I love that, like that whole like how they actually initially fought to like be the apprentice and stuff. All that's in there. I'm like, oh man, I want some of that explored. Like I really want them to pull from the comics more in there. If like Netflix is wanting to build this out and E1 is wanting to build this out and do interesting takes, I mean, why not do an anthology series and focus on like different, like do specials, right? And so like do anthology specials where it's like a different story every time. But like you get Soul of the Dragon, you get those kinds of things, and just like put your own spin on them, but like use that as the template. They still sort of tie in to history.
I would love a Soul of the Dragon movie. I'm not gonna lie. Like
Jason would do that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I would totally. I would love that. Like,
once Legend of the White Dragon is done, Jason would be in that in a heartbeat if you did that.
You know, I would love to see. I would love to see next with 30th anniversary season. I would love to see them kind of have like almost like a post-credit scene of what a Ranger's doing now. That kind of leads us up to the big finale where all these Rangers team up.
Cool.
Yeah, cool.
I like that idea.
There's a lot of fan favorites that we haven't seen return. I mean, a lot of them really are in some of the Disney era stuff that I like too, like some of those RPM Rangers I love. But
Mystic Force.
Yeah,
you and your Mystic Force.
Does not get enough love, man.
We
had a Mystic Force Lightning Collection figure yet?
What's that?
We haven't, right? We haven't had a
Mystic Force figure
collection figure yet. Yeah,
there's a reason why, man.
Stop it.
Nick, are you not a Mystic Force guy?
No.
He's a hater.
It's because Nick was one of the worst Rangers ever, and I hated it. I was like, you're such a terrible Red Ranger, and it was such a terrible end of the story. It's like you have all this stuff with your parents, and all you do is ride off into the sunset. That's terrible. So I was so upset.
You've never mentioned that that's why you dislike that show.
Oh, we've never gotten into it, right?
We've never, because you always say it sucks and you never give me a reason why. And now I know that it is simply because the character is also named Nick.
And he was the worst. And he was the worst. That's not like, in terms of Red Ranger rankings, like he's really, really bottom tier.
You wrote off Udana.
Wow, I love Udana. I actually love the whole Udana Solaris Knight thing.
So good, man.
It was that stuff was actually pretty cool. I'd like to see that little Great War that they talked about explored a little more too.
Yes. And even I love the suits. Look, I've always loved capes. All right, capes make it look cooler. I love them. Those suits rule.
Magna Defender is the only one who should have a cape.
That intro rules, even as dated as it is. That intro still rules. I just would love to see an up-res version of that intro. But also like the comics even like explored some of the back and forth. It was like in one, I can't remember which book that was. It was like a series of short stories, and like one of them was Mystic Force based. I was like, man, I would read a whole thing of that. Yeah, it's just so rich.
One of the annuals, I believe.
Yeah, it was so rich. There's so much to explore there, and that is an underutilized season. Both from the cast, like bring back one of them.
There's a reason they haven't done Magic again. So
because they didn't see the vision. That's why.
I'm just saying. Like, it's just
Now they haven't done Magic again. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because people like you, Nick. Because people like you shouting down the show for stupid reasons.
It's not stupid. There's a whole analytical argument.
Look,
there's a lot of Matts in Power Rangers.
And watching that era is Jungle Fury, because I feel like looking back now, I feel like there's elements that I would have really liked, but at the time I didn't like it. But now I feel like going back, I really got to check out Jungle Fury.
Yeah, Jungle Fury rules. So let's.
I like RJ a lot too.
Yeah,
Jungle Fury is one that I feel like I also slept on. I would be interested to go back and watch that because it's never been one of my favorites.
Same.
But that's also why they haven't done martial arts again as like the base topic, I guess. Right? They haven't done martial arts twice. They haven't done magic twice. They haven't done space. Well, yeah, they have Lost Galaxy, right? Yeah, Lost Galaxy counts. So
they just did it back to back, so they like took a break.
There hasn't been since Lost Galaxy. Has there really not been space since Lost Galaxy?
I don't think so.
I mean, unless you count all the flying into space,
Yeah, but that doesn't count. Like they weren't.
It doesn't, right? Yeah, like.
Yeah, no, I don't think so because
I feel like it's overdue for a space season.
Yeah, and then we got a tech season, right? Beast Morphers was kind of a techie season.
Yeah,
probably won't get ninjas for a
We've
while.
gotten ninjas a couple of times. We've gotten
what the 30th anniversary season, if there is one, is. What does that look like to you?
Ooh, that's a good question because I would say dinosaurs, but we just got one. So, I
fantasy. I want
fantasy.
Because I think fantasy is a natural step from Dino Fury, because Dino Fury plays with those concepts with like Rafcon and like him riding like a dinosaur and all that, right? Like you get some of that stuff, the great, like the armies fighting. There are very medieval aspects to that, so it doesn't feel like such a big jump from like if it were in space and then you do like knights and round table. That feels very big, but like here it wouldn't feel as big, but it would still feel different because you get to lean into some of the magic, but you don't have to make it explicitly about magic. You just get to dabble. Like to me, that opens up. You can have dragons. Like that opens up that.
You'll get a Super Sentai adaptation though, or do you think it'll be?
I think next time's original.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I would just dump all that because like looking at what the Sentai has left, there's just like the animal one in terms of like what I could see coming over, and yes, arguably Q Ranger, but like it would probably be another animal season if we got a 30th. So like animals are fine, but when looking at the actual show itself and you like see some of the powers in action and like,
is it me or have, because they never come out explicitly said like they're not doing Q Ranger, but there's like there seems to be a hesitancy, right?
Simon Bennett said that there would just be, well, I'm paraphrasing. I don't know the exact quote, but he said something along the lines of like it's not feasible because there's too many Rangers.
Right.
Then more recently, a bunch of the casting breakdowns for Power Rangers came out, and there's like 11 characters. So who's to say? But then also from the past with Power Rangers, those casting breakdowns are less. They're less indicators that those are the characters you're going to get, mainly because they're used for sides and essentially prototype characters. But if I had to guess, I would say, Matt, I would kind of agree with you that if I was a betting man, I would say that the next season of Power Rangers would consist of maybe an all original theme mixed in, and this is just a guess here, but I would say 44-minute long episodes, shorter seasons. And I would also say that it would almost be like an American version of Gokaiger, where it would almost pay homage in every episode past Rangers, with different Rangers from those seasons appearing in
popping up.
That would just be my guess.
I like that idea. It sucks that Megaforce wasn't so long ago. So you can see like where the idea can go so badly. But I really like that idea for a 30th. I wouldn't mind that. And then make it, and do a Dino Fury season 3 at the same time.
Man, all I heard was 44-minute episodes, and I was just like, that would rule. Just that. Like just having that format, I think would open up so much just in terms of, because like, good Lord, like I know a lot of people do it. Like there are a lot of half-hour sitcoms out there. There are a lot of half-hour shows out there that do a good job of telling stories. Like this is not like, I'm not robbing anything from the people that clearly do it well. But I admit there is an art to it, right? And it's got to be hard to fit in that much character growth and just also entertainment and all that stuff, and also progressing your story in 22 minutes. Like that's got to be just insanely difficult and a challenge. So like even just opening up that extra bit, to me, if that was the case, would be an upgrade. And then I love the idea of leaning into the older seasons, but like doing that one at a time thing where you bring back someone from that cast, because also I think that's feasible from a practical, like, hey, who can we get right now?
Yeah,
especially since we know that they're going to be shooting out in New Zealand for like the next 6 or for whatever, like that 6-month time span.
Yeah, I
feel like there's enough people there and with whoever they want to bring back to do especially if it's a shorter season with 44 minutes long. Let's say it's 10 episodes, 15 episodes, shorter seasons, 44 minutes long. It gives you more to play with and to build up to. And also, if you're doing it with an original suits, it also sets the precedent for what's to come with paying respects to the past. I think it's a great way to marry the past and the future of Power Rangers, and a hopefully seamless transition on Netflix.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I put not that it matters, my Matt stamp of approval on that idea. That's a great idea.
It doesn't, Matthew. It doesn't.
I keep trying to sell people on that. I'm like, look, you can put it right on the package. Matt stamp of approval, and they
go. If Matt had his druthers about it, yeah.
I mean,
if I did have my druthers,
I mean, you're right. This does it would totally make up for what the promise of Megaforce was supposed to be. I feel like that Megaforce. I remember that Morphicon trailer, and I saw it or whatever, and I was like, "Whoa, all these Rangers are going to be in it." And then you see what it really was, and you're like, "Oh, okay, cool." But like,
are we to the point? And then I think this is a great spot to close this because I've loved this, but like. I can't keep Joe's. I feel like I'm taking so much of your time.
I literally, hey, let's do this as long as you guys want.
Okay. So, because I felt bad, I was like, oh, I looked up at the clock. I was like, oh,
no, we're talking Power Rangers. Yeah, that's what happens. That's what happens.
So, it's a common thing now. It's also like the bane of my existence, but it's a common thing now to where, like, as time goes on, you look at things that you either once disliked or in some cases hated or whatever, and like it starts to become like revisionist history where like you go, oh, it wasn't that bad, or I actually liked it at the time, instead of going and like, okay, let's pull this out, get swamped, Snyderverse. So Justice League, right? Snyder Cut and all that. You had a lot of people coming out and saying like Batman v Superman at the time, widely regarded as like very divisive. It had its fans, its devout fans, but it also had a lot of people going like, I didn't like that, whatever, right? Ultimate Edition aside, I'm not talking about that, just the core thing. But as time has gone on, and especially as like the Snyder Cut movement picked up and things like that, you had people going, well, it's not, I actually liked it. Like it wasn't bad, and it didn't get that reception when like it clearly did at the time.
Right.
Are we to the point now where enough time has passed where that's going to start happening to Megaforce? Where like Megaforce, you're going to start people having come out and saying like, "Oh, it wasn't that bad." Yes. And I actually really liked it. Are we there?
Would agree with you, Matt. Like, so here's the thing with Megaforce. I think, and it's maybe one of those things that I have to rewatch as well. I think you know what it feels like. It feels like Megaforce is really ambitious, but they didn't really understand the fan base. So they didn't take their time fleshing it out, and they just kind of rushed it. I mean, I feel like there's a good season in there somewhere, but I don't think that the execution was as good as it could have been. But I think upon like looking back, I think it was the promise and knowledge that we were going to get this giant season. It was going to culminate 20 years of Power Rangers, and it just didn't feel like that once we actually got there.
Yeah.
But if you take out the being the 20th anniversary type of element from it, and just as a standalone, like kind of like, is this a cool season? I mean, it has elements to be, but I think there's a couple things that it has going against it. One, I think that they really try to make the dynamic as close to MMPR as they could for a modern audience, and I don't think that quite worked. And then they almost made them like cartoon characters, where they would like never change clothes.
Yeah.
And it was almost like that, you know what I mean? Like it almost felt like that they were doing like these kinds of things to really test the waters like that. A couple of those decisions I don't think really panned out, and I would say that the characters maybe didn't progress the way that they probably should have in the course of 44 episodes or whatever it was. And the Troy, I love Troy, but here's the thing. Like as a Red Ranger, we were talking about weaker ones. I think Troy had the promise to be a good Red Ranger, but it was all these things that just didn't pay off. Like there was no reason. Like what did he have something special with the Morphin Grid? I don't think that's really ever explained. So I don't know, man. Who knows? I think that looking back now, I want to go back and watch the season and check it out because I want to give it like a fair assessment rather than the promise of what could have been.
That's kind of where I am. I think I need to go back and like.
Well, from my point of things, it won't. I don't think you'll get any revisionist history as long as I'm around, Matthew, because I will sit here and be like, no, it wasn't a good season. You can argue Megaforce had its promise, in Megaforce, but once Super kicked in, and once they were like, oh, we gotta shove in a whole 50 episode series into 20 episodes on top of whatever we did before, that's when it all just shot out the window. And the problem with that is that we started getting the Super Megaforce's teases in Megaforce itself in that first episode. And so going along with what Joe said, it's the promise of a season that we never got. It's the promise of something we never got. You know, when you see the first episode, you see the giant head in the wall, and you're like, wow, this is Zordon, and you see all the Ranger keys, and you're like, yo, that's super cool. And then it doesn't kick in until 20 episodes later, and then all of a sudden there's a whole other set of enemies and a whole new set of powers, the Blitz powers. Let's not even get into that. Like, no, it's no revisionist history here. It's not a good season. Great attempts, poor execution. You tried. It's the you tried sticker. You know, you tried.
You tried. I will say that, man, that's the theme that should come back, is a pirate theme.
Yeah,
Power Rangers Space Raiders would have been a better name than Super Mega Force. And when we got easy. The Super Seasons is when I was like, oh, here we go.
Yeah,
but like
it's those a super suits, mega win.
Those suits are some of my favorite suits. I love those suits, and like
those
the helmet.
Cool suits.
Yeah. Cool. Everything about that is cool. It's Skies of Arcadia meets Power Rangers. How do you mess that up?
It's because Toei decided to go all out for their anniversary. You know, Toei was like, "Oh, let's do Super Sentai right, and let's do it up," and that's why they came out super cool. You know, and what did we get?
I think you're right, though. I think as time goes on and we're starting to, because even the cast has come out and said like they didn't get to do a lot with their characters, they didn't get to explore a lot, right? So we know that was the case even behind the scenes, like they were kind of being, you know, and also we know they kind of sort of ran out of budget, right? They kind of ran out of budget, they ran out of time, they did all the planting of the seeds for an epic thing, and then they ran out of money and time to actually pull it off 100% like I'm sure they wanted to, because people want to make it work, you know. Like I don't find that as quite a viable excuse for one reason, because another season that ran out of time and a budget too was SPD, and it's a phenomenal season. True.
Oh yeah.
Very true.
So like, you know, I found that look, honestly, and Nick, this is where you are right. I feel like with Megaforce and Super Megaforce, for the ambition, it was a very lazy season that they laid out. I think that the promise on paper was there, and this could be. Honestly, this could be a mandate from Saban or whoever else was running this at the time. But on paper, I felt like it was all there. It's just in execution is where it fell extremely short. And you can almost see, too, during the course of those two seasons, that the budget was very, very tight. I mean, granted that, you know, I'm sure that it was very, I don't know, maybe the Disney era, they freed it up a little bit. Who knows? But it just felt like during that early era, the Neo Saban seasons, it felt like they weren't really trying to do a lot with the budget until we kind of got to Dino Charge. I feel like they kind of like extended that a little bit. And then in Beast Morphers, it really felt like, all right, we're going to kind of go all out with our last hurrah under this banner. So
yeah. And also, you know, I'm sure, even though it's not Hasbro's property fully yet, you've also got Hasbro like, hey, we're shelling out how much money? Like, go ahead and give us at least a decent launch pad, you know, to like, don't completely screw us and go cheap. Like, actually give us a place to launch this from. But I can't argue with that, by the way. Like, I can't argue with the budget thing. I can't argue with that. Like, it just felt kind of lazy. Like, I can't argue with that either. I would just be curious I haven't seen it like in a very long time. It's been it's been a minute. It's not a season that I go and rewatch on a regular basis.
You don't watch the legendary battle every week?
No, I do not. It is not a part of my breakfast routine. So, you know, but I will now, because I am curious, but I will do it from the beginning, and I am curious. I might even like tweet as I go of like watching it, because I am curious. Now I'm just kind of, I don't know. Now my brain is kind of like, well, maybe I didn't quite. And I'll do the same with Dino Fury. Like, maybe
don't let it happen. Don't let it happen.
Here's the thing. It will never take away, though, because here's where people go wrong. It will never take away, though, that it was disappointing and that it didn't live up to its promise. So I'm okay with like people's opinions about something changing over time. I understand that. Like, I might go back and go like, you know, looking at it now, there are some cool things that it did, and I want to give it props for those. But it still doesn't take away from it's when it like you completely rewrite it and go like, it had no flaws. Clearly it had flaws. Like, that's where I get annoyed, is when like all of a sudden something you like hated is now something like you hold as like the gold standard. I'm like, how did you get there? You know, like, no one's mind can change that much.
Yeah, I mean, the opposite is true too, right? The things you love become like, you super love them now. Like, MMPR has become such a God's like series But when you look back, you're like, oh, well, there's an episode where they played football. You know, there's there's an episode where three of them got
trash from the park.
Yeah, it's like you forget some of you forget the flying you forget the flying bug. You know, the flying
the rad bug.
Yeah, you forget the rad bug, but then like you're like, oh yeah, the mutiny, oh the wedding, and you're like, yeah,
but I love the rad bug because I love Volkswagen Beetles. Like I just love the car. I mean, I was a Herbie fan.
Talking about those. What are they called? The Lightning Collection Deluxe packs? Is that what they're called?
Oh yeah.
If we got Punk, Billy, and Kimberly, that would be like when they turn to Power Punks. I would all about that. That would be so awesome.
That'd be cool.
I like that better. I'll pay the extra money for that. Like, I won't pay the extra money, even though I adore Pudgy Pig. He's like one of my favorite Power Rangers villains. I couldn't shell out.
I don't want another one. Another one. Pig. Yeah,
but I would shell out the money for Rad Bug. Like I would buy that, even though I do love the whole thing of like building a Rad Bug too. Like if you were to seed that throughout the line, but like you would have to. One, that would add so much to the cost, and they're already popping up a little bit.
Yeah,
because the Rad Bug it's not a figure. Like if you want to make it in size,
something like, could you imagine buying like a Punk Billy figure with a wheel in it? It's like, oh yeah, that wheel's for the Rad Bug.
But like, it couldn't be the wheel though. It would have to be like 25% of the car. Like. That's the thing. Like most of the packaging would be the car, and then I get a figure with my car. Like that's how that would be if you really wanted to put an in scale to where you could actually put them in.
Right.
You would have to do it. Otherwise, you have a McFarlane 66 Batmobile situation where like the figures sit so high, like they're not right in scale. So it's weird. It's like they're supposed to be in scale, but
for my Lightning Collection display, I have a ton in the garage. It's still in the boxes, but I was thinking, I would really love to see like almost like these diorama cockpits where you can put your figures into the make cockpits. I think that would be really cool and a great display piece for your Lightning Collection figures. I feel like at this point now I should just work for Hasbro marketing on the Power Rangers.
You know what though? Here's the thing. So I know that like in the figure space, just like in general, I know dioramas are a hard sell, or like bases are like a hard sell because they don't sell because of the price difference. You have to mark them up,
right?
And they don't sell. That's why I'm actually very I like what McFarlane recently did with the 66 Batcave because he actually made that at a pretty decently affordable price. And while it's not like probably as immaculate and as big and expansive as you like, he did like a bunch of smaller pieces. So like it still looks, you have the one centerpiece and then it still has like all the computers and everything. So even though it's really a bunch of small stuff with like one big piece, it feels expansive and it feels like, oh, this is more of a setting as opposed to just, oh, hey, it's a cardboard thing in the background. You can do that. So I feel like that is a way to do that where it's a nice melding of the two. But like most times dioramas are hard because they don't sell as well and they take up a bunch of space on the shelf. So retailers only want to carry so many of them and they're more expensive.
Right.
And they're more expensive to make.
But I'm also not going to lie. I would spend an unfortunate amount of money on a command center. So
right.
Like if you could open a command center and get the whole thing, I would.
Well, they've got the Zordon piece already, right?
Yeah,
in the 2-pack.
Yeah, the Zordon and Alpha. That's right. You already have your part of it there. So all you need is the couple of the panels and stuff. And
you got the big head in the tube. That's like the centerpiece of everything. Just
I would buy that.
That right into a bigger tube. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I agree with Joe. I think right now the thing that's missing from my Lightning collection is I need somewhere to put them around. I don't have a way to like display them in a way that like feels like, it's kind of like, oh, here's my Lightning collection showpiece. Like I don't have that yet because there's nothing to build them around. Yes, I can put them on stuff.
I asked Hasbro about this like a year ago if because I'm sure you guys have been to Comic-Con and see the Lightning figure displays. One thing about the displays that's very unique, and I was like, yo, this is actually a pretty cool little element to it, is that there's the figure base that you put the figure on with the peg holes, but there's also another extender that you put the helmet on. And I was like, yo, they should like kind of sell this So this would be an easier, cleaner way to display each one of these Lightning Collection figures.
Sure.
Yeah.
What did they say?
Yeah.
They said that's a great idea.
Yeah.
They said that's a great idea, but yeah, these are usually customs that we just do for display purposes at conventions. But maybe we should looking into making these public. But the Maddie or not Maddie collector, the Hasbro Pulse, I feel like you'd be able to sell those like
right.
Yeah.
Or even just give me I've grown to I don't hate them. I don't hate anything really. I just want to put that out. I say hate a lot. The last couple of months.
Yeah, you don't. I'll vouch for that.
I really
I'll vouch for that. Yeah.
But I've grown a disdain for the simple circle bases that I get with everything now. I was spoiled on Toy Wiz has Marvel Legends when I had the actual base that like now is reserved for like figure arts and stuff, but like where it actually had the plastic extenders.
Yeah, it was like the flight base, right?
Yeah, and it had the peg that you could pop in the hole in the back, and you could actually do like I can't do a lot of cool martial artsy poses with my
mine don't stand up unless you like stand them up awkwardly, like unless I lean them on something
that allowed you to be able to do those poses, and they were still, I mean, those figures at the time were like $25. So yeah, if you want to make that a Hasbro Pulse exclusive thing where like those figures, if you order it from them, you get that thrown in, or you get it for an extra, even if it's just an add-on, I'd probably pop for it, because like my White Ranger figure that I bought when that first hit has a his foot like won't the joint.
Same here.
I am so scared to apply, like I gotta actually go with a torch and like or heat it a little bit to do it. I'm still kind of scared of that because it's been so long now. It's been in this one spot and his foot won't rest square on the ground. It's angled. So, which is great for poses because he does that all the time when you're doing like some big kick, but I can't get him to really, I have to always prop him up against something. But that base immediately takes that out of the equation. And then you can do that with a couple figures. And even though if you don't have a setting, you can still make a really cool little diorama for yourself. And you're not having to come out with a new product. You just need to add a base in. I'll take that over like one of the effects. If I got to swap it, I'll swap a good base.
Same. I would rarely use the effects at all, but I'm the same exact way.
I lose them.
You do? Yeah. So they're easy to lose, right?
Yeah. Or, my like Munchkin takes it off my table and I never see it again. It's like somewhere around here is a Z power and another blue thing that's like charging up in her room somewhere because she like jacked it one day and I've never seen it again. So I'll take a base over that. So, okay, before we go, because I actually do, this leads perfectly into our final topic here. If you were going to, because one of the things that got announced recently was, of course, the Lord Draken helmet, which, I know Nick is all about the helmets. He's probably, are you going to get it?
Of course, but I'm also upset that they haven't just done the standard colors yet. Like I already I bought the Joe. I've told Matt this dozens of times. Like I have every helmet that's come out already. Like I've got the red and green from Bandai, the white and pink, and the Z. So of course I'm buying the Draken, but give me the black and blue and yellow. Just do those first.
No, I get it. That's such a collector mentality. I agree with you though. Like, let's complete this first and then move on to.
Yeah.
They must see it though as like, hey, we're gonna just anything that we kind of put with the JDF or the Tommy image on it. It's
right.
Sell more. So that's just my assumption.
Yeah, I mean, you can't argue. I mean, it's got to be because
it
sells, man. Like Dragon stuff is hard to find.
I'm buying it. Like I'm complaining about it.
Part of the problem, Nick.
We've already exactly. Like they're already gotten my pre-dollars, so it's
Jeez, and you pre-ordered it. You didn't even wait to go hunt on the racks. You pre-ordered it. You're super part of the problem.
I'm the issue here.
But here's the thing: I can't hate on you. You know why? Because I got my pre-order in on the 2-pack of Trini and Jason with these swapped colors because. That is one of my absolute one. That's one of my favorite stories within the comics. But 2, that is one of my favorite Dan Mora covers. There's actually a couple of them with Trini as the red.
Yeah,
that just amazing. So I even had Ryan sign one because I was like, I love this cover so much. Will you sign it? I love that. So when this was announced, I'm in automatically. The 50 something buck hurts. But you know, okay. I understand that it's
you
a
gotta
comic
do what you
thing,
gotta do.
You gotta do it. So with that said, what is the next comic based figure that Hasbro needs to do for the Lightning collection?
Look, in my heart, my head says the Omega Rangers because I feel like that's a story that we're following. But my heart really wants the Solar Rangers.
Oh, yes.
I feel that like it's a storyline. Look, no matter what was going to happen after Shattered Grid, it was going to be really hard to like live up to whatever that next storyline was going to be. But I really like those suits. I think those Solar Ranger suits look sweet. Another one is Dane. Obviously, I love.
Yes, Dane. Dane is like born for a figure, and you've already got the base head to work with.
Exactly.
Just change. I mean, come on. That writes itself.
Wait, Matt. So I know that you pre-ordered the Jason and Trini, but I have a question for you because I do like their head sculpts. They look like the more likeness from the show. Mm-hmm. But are you disappointed? It doesn't look like the likeness from the comic.
So I am one. I was slightly disappointed, just slightly. But I also know about myself that I rarely display a figure without its helmet. Like I think, as I look back, look around, I think one, and I think it's Robbie because like I wanted to give some props to Jazz for his figure because it's an amazing likeness. So I was like, here you go. You're the only one. He's the only one in all the figures I have that has his helmet off, and he was fighting Goldar in my makeshift. Props to you, Jazz. I got to highlight him. So, but I think everybody else, the helmeted looks just to me look cooler, and most of the time when I am posing them, they're in a fight scene, so it just kind of makes sense, you know. So unless it's like now there was one caveat to that. Look, I'm a diehard Ranger Slayer fan. I got my Ranger Slayer figure. I'm very excited. I was bummed that I did not get a comic version of coinless Kim because it is such a distinct and cool look for her with the kind of the mohawk and the earrings. I would have thought about it. Like I would have actually done half and half for that one.
You know what? I'm also surprised too that, and I understand the definition or the people saying that. Well, you know, the Magna Defender and Mike were kind of different. So I'm surprised we didn't get Mike's head with the Magna Defender, only because we got Doggy Kruger's head with the Shadow Ranger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's weird the ones that we don't get because like Ranger Slayer, there was no heads. There was no second head even. It wasn't even Kim. It was just
nothing.
There was nothing, and I'm like, I wonder why. Like that's curious to me. I wonder if it was because like I don't know. I'd be curious. I won't even speculate. I have no idea why that's me. I would be curious to ask one day.
Yeah.
Next time I get to talk to Hasbro. But yeah. So I was slightly disappointed, but again, it will be kind of moot. That said, if I do want to recreate that cover, if we do end up getting all the swapped colors, and I go to make that cover, they're all helmetless on that cover.
Mm-hmm.
So I would actually display them, and that would be probably the one time I would go, man, I wish they were all look a little closer. But yeah, but who's your so okay, so Nick, who's yours?
So in terms of helmets, I would probably say like a Ranger Slayer helmet. I mean, since we're getting Draken, like a Ranger Slayer helmet would make sense, and I would buy it because it looks super cool anyway. I would complain, but I'd be like, yeah, it looks cool. But in terms of figures, I want the SPD green with the dragon shield.
Like, JJ.
You know, yeah, there you go. I forgot his name, but I would totally like that figure.
That would be cool.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure I could pop off the dragon shield off the one I have, but no, I don't want to do that. It's dumb. Like, we just buy it.
Like a Legend of the White, or a Tommy from that what is it? The Legend of the White Dragon, like an older.
The older grizzled Tommy. Yeah.
The
and those are ones they can do relatively easily, right? Because you're just using the core model. Core mold doesn't change, and you're just those are perfect exclusives, right? So I think both of those are like easily doable.
And you have to assume the character Tommy generates so much money for the franchise that you would have to assume at some point, some way, you're going to get every iteration of Mighty Morphin. Like, I'll be shocked if we don't get like the Wild West Mighty Morphin Rangers.
Oh my god! I was by the hell
you know what?
that.
That's okay. Let's scratch all the suggestions I had. Let's just do that. Let's do
That
Wild West
one.
Rangers. Yeah.
Oh my god!
It's only a matter of time, right, guys?
Right, and then just re-release the Pink Ranger in the same pack because she was the only one without the tassels. So
exactly,
like, they can
Ranger. Exactly. That's the way you get that 5-pack, and it makes you buy that Pink Ranger where you're like, God damn it.
Yeah. Oh man.
Mine is easy and probably not going to happen for a minute because it is not practical whatsoever. I want Yale.
Oh, that would be sick.
I want Omega Ranger Yale. I wish
that's a good Build-A-Figure.
Right, that's a perfect Build-A-Figure because that one it's just like pieces. They've done that in Marvel Legends a ton. Like you can totally have that. And if you want to include the Omega Rangers in that line, because those are, you've got a red, you've got a yellow, you've got a black, those are going to sell decently well, especially because those designs are so different.
Yep.
I think you could do that. I would also not. I would actually be cool with a Kia.
Oh yeah.
But Yale is just so good. He's so cool, and that suit just rules. Like I had a mark out moment when he came out. I also think a Altarian Pass Zordon.
Oh yeah.
Or even the armored Zordon that we got towards the end of that would be cool. So that he doesn't have to just.
You can put him in a 2-pack with the movie Zordon when he's out of the tube and he's just in the big robe.
That's a great idea.
Well, yeah, you can put him in the movie Red Ranger Zordon with the 2017 movie.
Yes.
Oh man, they should totally do that. By the way, Generations.
Yeah,
like just label that Generations and like they did that. Saban did that, didn't they? At one point, kind of like a crossover thing.
Towards like that like towards the end there of the Saban run, I feel like that's when we're getting these really cool like Power Ranger packs. I mean, it might even been the Disney era that I want to say that I can't remember when, but I know exactly what you're talking about. We would get these like, legacy packs.
Yeah, and it was like characters from different seasons, but like it was they were sort of connected in some way. That was really cool. I'd like to see them bring that back, and obviously with the Lightning Collection articulation and aesthetic and everything. I think that would roll. So yeah, mine is practical as a Build-A-Figure. There's no other mold. They haven't made another giant ass cat. So take a minute. All of yours are probably going to happen way sooner. I still want my Udana figure, but that's not from the comics. So
I'm shocked we haven't gotten any Mystic Force or RPM Lightning Collection figures yet.
Nick clowns me, but I just want to say that I remember back when we were having a discussion about Power Rangers figures, and everyone poo-pooed me when I said I wanted a Ranger Slayer, and they're like, "Oh, you're gonna have to wait a long time for that. Oh, it's gonna take a minute. Oh, they're not gonna do that." And I'm not kidding. 6 months later, they were like, "Here's Ranger Slayer," and oh my god, I bragged.
Yeah, you were vindicated for once, and you ran with that for till now.
I'm still running. I'm still running with it. It still happens.
Towards I would say this though. Towards the last year, I feel like we got for the last couple of years, we've gotten so many figure announcements. It almost felt as a collector so hard to keep up.
Yeah.
Like, from the Ninja Turtles to the A Squad Rangers. You know what I mean? Like there was, and even now, there's just so many. But I feel like up until recently, we haven't gotten a ton of announcements. So I'm very curious to see like what the plan is for the 30th anniversary. If we're gonna get more like role play things, like the Power Sword, maybe, or even like look, I don't know how you're gonna. I thought the Communicators were phenomenal when they came out. So I don't know how you're gonna redo those, but maybe they're gonna re-release something like that. But I'm really curious to see what the line looks like for the 30th anniversary stuff.
Yeah, agreed. And we don't even have a ton of morphers and stuff. Like they've still they've been very methodical, I'll say. Also slow. You can say slow. I'll say methodical in how they're like kind of pushing that stuff out. The helmets, at least we've had an uptick in announcements.
Yeah, like in terms of big box stuff, I would love like an Astro Megazord. I'd love like the turbo cars. Like I'd love to be able to
well, we do have the Ascension project, right? With our Dino Mega. So like Astro Megazord is it's one. I think it's actually when we did our top Zord list. Was it my top Zord? I have to go back and look now. I think it was. I mean, it was up there because I love that Zord.
It's
it
a
turns
cool
into a ship.
It's cool. Like I don't. It's hard to top that one. It's always been the coolest one.
The Astro Mega ship, yeah. And then just if they were to make that bridge, you know what I mean? The bridge of the Astro Mega ship, I'm all about it.
Yeah, man.
Also,
who do we need to bug to get Power Rangers or Hasbro to do to partner with Funko? I need more pops. We haven't had pops since the movie, right?
You know what I was thinking myself too is that I was thinking about Power Rangers and because I think they have a deal with Play-Doh, and I was like, it's such a missed opportunity not to make the Monster-Matic and do different molds of the little monsters in Play-Doh form, and make them scale to the Lightning Collection. You could literally do putties in Play-Doh form and make them scale to the Lightning Collection.
That'd be cool. I would buy that.
Great idea.
Yeah, I would buy it.
If you made the Monster-Matic to scale, you can do just different molds of whatever monsters there are. I feel like
put on my Finster glasses,
exactly.
And just
I already have them. That's what I wear normally. That's my prescription. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. That's a man. How that? I mean, it would literally be your Power Rangers Easy Bake Oven.
Exactly right. And then that's great for kids because they can make their own monsters. And if if you don't want to make all of these Lightning Collection villains, just do some of them like this, and kids will have fun playing with the toys and these Play-Doh things.
I agree.
Yeah,
I think that's a great idea.
I remember playing with the creepy crawlies molds of the Power Rangers. I heated up a little wax Jason, and it was just I played with that. I remember to this day playing with that for an entire day. Just this little floppy wax Jason.
I need to get a job at Hasbro and Power Rangers.
That's a great idea. I'm gonna say by next Christmas season, if we don't have that, I feel like you just need to
I'm gonna put one on Etsy. You'll see.
Make a custom. 3D print that boy. Yeah, because I'm oh man.
There's so many ideas. I was even thinking just fashion apparel wise, how come we haven't seen more for fanny packs? You know what I mean? Just little more for fanny packs. I feel like at Morphicon, another fun one would be, I think that we should get make a Power Rangers, almost like a Power Rangers yearbook. That way you get each season to sign their class. It becomes like an autograph book. See, man, Power Ranger marketing genius.
I gotta say, I just need more apparel. Now, I do like what Reebok's been doing as far as shoes. We have been getting that.
Those shoes are so gaudy.
But I need. I wear them all.
That's my thing. It's that's my thing. The fashion sounds great, but not if it's designed by nerds.
But I wear them all, Nick. I love them.
But you can only wear them around other Power Ranger nerds.
That's not true.
If you try wearing that flashy...
I wore it to Walmart the other day. I wore my Red Ranger shoes to Walmart the other day. Well, I wore my Trini Yellow Ranger shoes and got compliments.
If you try wearing that Zed shoe anywhere with the blue string on it and no, that's not a wearing shoe. That's the thing. It's just and the new era caps, keep them with the logo. That's cool. See, there you go. And you have an Angel Grove.
I got my Zed shoes. And I haven't worn them yet, but
because they're not wearing shoes.
I'm gonna wear them. You're damn right. I'm gonna wear them.
Matt's gonna have it's gonna be like a wardrobe change. His outfit's gonna match his Ranger shoes. I love it. I'm with you on it though.
I have worn Power Ranger shoes to the last 3 press junket press event.
Oh boy,
I've been to Royal Rumble. I was rocking my Yellow Ranger shoes. And
those are cool.
Are you going to WrestleMania?
No. Connor is going to be going there for us this time because I went to Rumble, so we trade off. But yeah, he is super stoked. That's going to be quite a show. Oh yeah. By the way, it's also that we got 3 wrestling nerds here too.
Look, man, I already booked how I'd bring Cody back. It doesn't seem like it's going to work out the way I booked it, but. Whatever. Okay. We gotta hear it though, real quick. You want to pack? All right. So what I would have done leading up to this, because it's a play on WrestleMania 10 for me, right? Because I think WrestleMania 10 had this really cool factor, and if you think about it, Yokozuna was Roman Reigns' cousin. They had this dual matchup where He fought Lex Luger first, and then he fought Bret Hart in the end. So essentially what I would do is, look, we already know that Brock Lesnar won the title at Elimination Chamber, but nobody ever beat Bobby Lashley. So we already know that the match for WrestleMania is going to be Roman and Brock. I would do that on night one, but then throw Lashley into the mix, being like, hey, I never got beat. Like, I deserve a shot at the title. And then they should say, you know what? You do deserve a shot at the title. So the winner faces Lashley night two. But the thing is, it would be unfair to not have Lashley have an opponent because he's going to be fresh for night two at WrestleMania. So night one, they make it interesting. Cody Rhodes shows up. Cody Rhodes and Bobby Lashley have a match. Brock Lesnar interferes or whatever. Paul Heyman interferes, whatever you want to do, because they had something going with Bobby Lashley. Cody Rhodes ends up winning. So he goes on to night two's WrestleMania in the championship match. Then you would have Bobby Lashley return the favor, a bunch of run-ins, screw out Brock Lesnar. Cody Rhodes wins the match with help from Paul Heyman and all these other factors. So it's Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns for the main event Sunday at WrestleMania. The match happens. Like, people want to see a heel Cody. People have wanted to see a heel Cody for a long time, but right now we're going to play him as a face. Match happens. They have the match, and then you get all this run in from Brock Lesnar, who's trying to attack Roman, and then you also get Heyman turning on Roman Reigns and joining Cody. Cody wins the title. Next night on Raw, Cody's holding both titles, and he talks about why he's here. He talks about, he never really says AEW by name, but talks about building up competition. And then he talks about Vince McMahon directly, saying that, you put my dad in polka dots, and I'm here to bring tradition back. Throws down both titles, and he says, I'm bringing tradition back with WCW. And I'm going to do it with Paul Heyman. And Paul Heyman's the one that's going to really help me guide in this new WCW, brings back the WCW title, and then you can have him kind of take over NXT and turn that into WCW. That's what I would do, essentially.
Wow.
I know.
Yeah.
Damn. I did not expect
that. A lot to throw out there. But I think it would be a lot of fun, and it would get them at the very least. It would totally have that immediate impact and would get the wrestling world talking again about WWE, Cody Rhodes.
That would be cool, because as of right now, it makes no sense for him to be involved in Seth Rollins' story outside of them just being two dudes who need a match at WrestleMania.
I mean, which, by the way, I'm fine with if that gets me Cody Seth, because that will be great. But I agree, there's no real right now. You could say that for a couple aspects of WrestleMania. I mean, right now there's pieces that are.
There's a lot of things just happening just because this year.
Hey, we're gonna put Naomi and Sasha Banks together. And
let's toss out the Naomi and Sonya story. Right? Let's toss out the biggest non-women's title story.
Where did that come from? Even though the Boston Glow, love it.
Yeah, I like it too. Yeah, but it does feel that whole match. What is it? 4 teams now. That just seems like it's
Here we go. Build a tag, and it's like they just assembled all the loose parts. I love all of them, but I'm a Liv Morgan fan. Liv Morgan deserves I would have liked to see her had stayed in that title.
Me too.
Center, especially if Ronda's not going to be in it, because I get Ronda kind of comes in is going to take over, but she was occupied with Flair, so why not keep her in the mix? In the title mix and kind of, build to that. Instead, it's again, Ripley and Morgan are great as a tag team because they're great, but it was just random. It's just
it's all so random. And it sucks for Rhea Ripley too, because she was just in a tag team.
She was just in a tag team.
Yeah, and then they did a whole breakup just to put her in a new tag team.
Feels very weird. That was
the thing is, I don't really see the purpose of these WWE Women's Tag Team Championships if they're not utilized. I feel and for the longest time, I almost forgot who the champions were. And same thing almost with the Intercontinental title. I feel like now we're starting to see it in focus a little bit. But I think Shinsuke defended it once in 60 days or something.
He really did. Yeah, he really did. And I think they said it on one of the episodes too. I was crazy. Wait a minute. Yeah, it's been a long time.
And I know he was hurt for part of it, but he was not hurt for a long time of that. And they just came out and had non-title matches. And it was that's very odd. I feel like The Miz, when he was Intercontinental champ, defended that thing more times in a month than like Shinsuke did over the entire run. You know,
The Miz is super underrated. I feel that he really did bring prestige back to that Intercontinental Championship.
I mean, Miz, when Miz said he was like the only 2-time Grand Slam like champion, like it's like, yeah, of course you were. Like it's like, of course, like he doesn't get the credit until people like it's going to be a retrospective kind of credit. It's going to be when he finally retires, people going to be like, wow, he did a lot. You know, and you're like, no. Appreciate it now. Appreciate what he's doing now.
Well, I also really hope that Bobby Roode sticks with his glorious gimmick that they just gave him back in NXT.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
So I actually need to go start my work. So otherwise, I would sit here for another hour.
I know. Yeah,
we gotta jump on. We gotta jump on the boards there. But Joe, seriously, this has been awesome.
Thank you.
So fun.
Anytime, I would love to do this again. This has just been so fun. Just
I will take you up on that wholeheartedly.
Absolutely,
I will be
Joe.
wearing the Zed shoes when it happens because I back up what I say. And I'm gonna love it, man. Do you want to shout out anything before we go?
Yeah, you can follow me on all social media at Joe Luminardi. You can also check us out over at theilluminati.com. We are going to be breaking a Power Ranger news hopefully relatively soon. I'm still working on the details for it. But we're working on something, but we will have that coming out soon.
Awesome. And of course, you can always catch me and Nick on the Twitters, and you can catch all of our written stuff. Nick in the anime world, me and a bunch of stuff, including the wrestling and the Law and Order and Power Rangers world and comics world. And then me and Nick get to talk wrestling on Tuesday and Friday night. So it's always super
I would love to be on that show too, guys. Just let me know. Hey, just saying, I just caught up on some New Japan Cup. So, I'm all about it.
Oh, man, it's coming. It's expanded. Thank you guys so much for checking this out. And this will be up on YouTube soon and then all on your podcast channels. Peace out, everybody.
Bye.
Later.